For the budget workshop.
Monday morning.
Everyone set? Hello. All right, well, it is 5:30 and I'm not ready. We are not ready.
Yep, it should be good.
All righty, welcome everyone to our budget workshop. This is our second budget workshop. I'm just going to do a quick roll call. Councilor Pelletier. Can you hear me, Councilor Pelletier? Councilor Pelletier, can you hear me?
We have sound.
Is sound check here?
Echo.
I don't know if his sound.
No echo, that's fine.
We have sound going through.
Oh, this happened last time too. Louis, can you hear me? Yeah, last time this happened, you have to turn his volume up. Can you hear me, Councilor Pelletier? I'm gonna give him a call.
There we go.
Can you hear me? Louis, can you hear me?
Yes.
All right, great. I'm gonna do a roll call for our budget workshop. Councilor Pelletier,
Here.
Councilor Bragdon, here. Councilor Danforth,
Here.
Councilor McEwen, here. Chair Goley here. Councilor Madore,
Here.
and Councilor Prey is excused. As I said, this is our second budget workshop. I'm going to turn it over to our manager who has some updates on some general items, and then we'll get into each one of the specific departments we had outlined in our agenda. So with that, Mr. Manager.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. We did discover some areas for improvement and change in the overall budget past few days that we would like to address before we jump into the full presentation. And Councilor Bragdon, if you want to pull that document up, it would be the FY23 budget report changes. Wonderful.
I'll fix it in just a minute, I promise.
That's okay. Excellent. So the changes that we've identified under revenue start with the main state municipal revenue sharing. There is some concern about the future of the revenue sharing at this point, so we wanted to back off a little bit to make room for possible future changes to that program. Understanding that for however many years in a row, it has been fairly consistent. It is an election year. We do not know what's going to happen to that program in the future, but we anticipate that that number will hit accurately, and if so, that is an additional buffer that we can build in into the future. We are going to be strongly suggesting that we revisit the discussion on ARPA funds soon for a decision on the allocation that we had discussed for the Iron Bridge Road culvert replacement. That is a very necessary project, needs to be taking place. We've talked through it numerous times. We originally had $275,000 built into our expenses for that project. With the change in price from the original quote of that project and the deduction or the addition of that $150,000 that we spoke about, it is not finalized, not agreed on yet. And the additional cost of the project, the difference remaining will be $70,000. That will be a substantial decrease from the $275,000 that was previously budgeted for. We did increase the suggested transfer from the fund balance from 400,000 to 600,000. Feel that's a pretty safe bet there. We will have an increase. This agreement is not set in stone yet, but we feel very strongly that it will be in motion in the very near future, and that is that we have come to an agreement to keep our assessor, and it will occur some additional costs and some flexibility with sharing services with another town to be able to offer the main PERS program to our assessor. As I've shared in an email, that's a very worthwhile investment. We will see an increase revenue-wise with the snow sled registrations and ATV registrations, I believe. The ATV wrapped up in that too. That's just the snow sleds, my apologies. So that is an overall change, all things considered, of $68,399. In expenses, we were able to eliminate. We believe very strongly between Ms. Daigle and I that we will be separating come June 1st, knowing that we will still have, I'm assuming, frequent conversations, use as a sounding board, but we feel pretty confident in that being a good transitional date. So we will be ending that agreement at that time. There is some additional expense, like I said, on the assessor that will be offset by the revenue there for the majority. And the other line items listed here are almost entirely around the cost of heating fuel. We're looking at some pretty substantial increases there, and we don't want to fall short with any of that in our budget. So the overall budget changes, we were actually, flexing all these numbers around, we were able to actually decrease the suggested budget by the amount of $147,131. So keeping in mind, this does not include what will be the final decision on assistant chief or other positions for the fire EMS department. This may create some wiggle room to more responsibly afford that position. So we'll keep that in mind as we work through the other departments. Does anybody have any questions on the overview there?
Councilman Dorr.
Mr. Manager, what was discussed the other day about creating an assistant fire chief and some other situations is not included in this. Is the I hate to use the term grant writer, but is Amber's position fully in this budget? Okay,
It is.
all right, thank you.
And to further respond to that, we didn't build in the suggestion, but we do when we get to the fire department, EMS department. We do have options worked out to present to kind of have a more collaborative approach on that decision.
Just to follow up on the positions that were suggested, adding three positions, that is not in this either. So all those suggestions that were from the other night, as far as personnel or new hires or whatever, are not indicative of what's in here.
They are not built into this.
All right, thank
They
you.
have been worked out as suggestions for the council to consider.
Okay,
And that department comes at a later date during the workshops.
okay, thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you, Councilor Dora. Yes, Mary Alice?
The only thing that's in here is that I did increase the legal budget by another 25,000.
Thank you.
Thank you, Mary Alice. Yeah, if any of the departments that we had any comments on or suggestions from the last budget workshop, it'll be addressed and proposed when we get to those departments. And I think the fire department is in 2 meetings from now. So
Correct.
we will have those options then. Any other questions or comments on the overview here? All right, seeing none. Yes, Councilor Madore.
As we go through the budget process, are we going to, you mentioned the fact that we won't be touching the fire department for a couple of budget meetings, getting to them. Do we have, or have I missed something as far as having a schedule of when we're going to be taking up which departments? Because I don't have it.
Yes, the schedule was emailed out. I can forward that to you.
Okay, thank you, if you would.
Sure.
That way I know what departments we're going to be discussing ahead of time.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Sure. And just to keep you in the loop, Councilor Madore, this evening, we will be going over general government, elections and registrations, town clerk's department, municipal building, audit, legal expenses, administration, economic development, and community initiatives director.
Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Manager. And with that, we'll start jumping into it. I'll just remind everyone of the process as has been done for quite some time. If there's any line item that a counselor would like to propose a change, that number just needs to be stated and a second counselor has to agree. When we get to our actual deliberations, we will be voting on those suggested changes. So that won't be for until at least after our May 19th budget workshop. So with that, I'll go department by department. I'm going to read the FY23 budget total and the variation. And I will go to the council to see if there's any suggested changes or any questions on it. So with that, on page 1 of 22, Councilor Bragdon, do you have that on the screen perhaps?
Yep, just 1 second.
Thank you. All righty. Thank you, Councilor Bragdon, again for your role as unofficial tech person.
Nobody saw that.
Yes, I did.
There it is.
I missed something
Yes, you
apparently.
did. It's okay.
I was looking down too. I think I'm kind of glad actually.
Oh, so nothing very alarming. He almost ended the meeting. It was okay.
Well, with that, page 1 of 22, we're at Department 101, General Government. The proposed FY23 budget is $369,554. That's a variation of $48,056. Are there any questions or proposed changes on this department?
Mr. Chairman.
Councilman Dorr.
As we look down at all these, the 3% raises are already been built in. When we look at the numbers here, we're other than salary personnel, all the 3% raises have been built in. Has 3% been built in for the salary personnel as well? Okay, thank you.
And that was an affirmative by the treasurer. Any other questions or proposals from the council? Seeing none, we will move to page 2 of 22. Department 103, elections and registrations. FY23 budget, $9,124. That's a variation of $213. Any questions or comments or proposals from the council? And seeing none. Moving to Department 104, Town Clerk's Department. It's a total of $251,176,000. That is a variation of $18,380. Any council comment? Councilor Madore?
Again, Mr. Chairman, the final for the assessor, what we just saw as far as the assessor and benefits, that is already in this
That,
moving forward.
that is in the assessing department, which comes at a later date,
Okay,
but yes.
thank you.
Thank you, Councilor Madore. Any other comments or questions from the council? Seeing none, going to page 3. Department 107, assessing. The proposed budget is $75,600. It's a variation of $20,788. Any comments from the council?
We did not have
Yeah.
that, the schedule for this evening.
Oh, my
Counselor
bad.
Goley.
Clerks.
As I mentioned earlier,
Oh,
we
yeah.
still have some fine
You're right.
tuning to do with that new agreement.
Thank you. Forget that. Skip that page. Go to the next one. Page 4, Department 108, Municipal Building. Proposed budget is $70,500. That's a decrease of $8,587. Any comments from the council? Councilor McEwen?
Just a question on the specifics of the part-time line, if I've already missed it.
So, good question, Councilor McEwen. The decrease on the part-time line there comes from combining the custodial line with the code enforcement line. So you'll find that difference in an increase later on.
Thank you.
Thank you, Councilor McEwen. Any other council comment on municipal building? Seeing none, that moves us to audit, Department 109. Proposed budget, $16,000. That's a decrease of $2,000. Any council comment? And seeing none, moves us to legal expenses. It is budgeted for $100,000. That is counting for the $25,000 increase spoken earlier. Overall, it's a decrease of $53,431. Any council comment or questions?
All at once.
Okay, seeing none. Moves us to administration. On page 5, it's Department 112. The proposed budget is $83,885. That's an increase of $1,035. Any council comment or questions? And seeing none, that moves us to economic development. That is on page 7. Department 115. The proposed budget is $27,880. That's an increase of $2,610. Any council comment? Councilor Madore?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Really would like to go ahead and like I say, I'm looking for money to be put into the budget for use economic development wise or whatever that could possibly be used as matching funds in case we have anything to come up, especially if it has to do with, say, downtown revitalization or whatever, if we have projects. So I would make, I'm looking, I just would like to have a line in there where we have, there's nothing more than an additional 25,000 in there as money put in to hedge against matching funds for economic development.
Thank you, Councilor Madore.
Second.
That's seconded by Councilor McEwen. And on that, I know that there used to be a budget line for a revolving loan at one point. Mary Alice, is that still, do you think that that would be an applicable line, and do we still have a line for that? Oh, your mic was on before.
Well, I'm wondering about the CDBG grant funds.
You're wondering about it?
Is that, would that be a place? Yeah, I mean,
If there was any money, what happened, oh, I'm sorry. What happened before, the reason we ended up with a revolving loan fund to begin with was the last time we received a community development block grant for the downtown area, we actually received more money than we spent for downtown revitalization. And so the money that was left over, we were allowed to roll into a revolving loan fund from there off a community development block grant to move forward. I don't see that happening this time around because I think just about everything from that community development block grant is going to be expended. So I don't see any money left over from that. So I don't think I don't think it would fall into that category this time around. But a revolving loan fund, if that 25,000 I'm talking about would be, if you're looking to put that in like a loan fund, it's really not what I was proposing.
Yeah, that's what I was asking, if you were proposing something similar to that. Councilor McEwen?
Yeah, that's the only thing I wanted to chime in on, just because I seconded it, was we've done a loan fund before, but I wasn't seconding on for a loan fund. There's quite a lot that goes into that program and who's going to manage and the managing of that program. For a line, I would think it would just be more like a grant share or something.
Yes.
Something like grant match.
Right. Grant match line.
But I know when you say loan, it starts getting into
Right.
another whole.
Sure.
can of worms.
Exactly.
Yep, and that's what I want to clarify. So you're looking for an additional line for a grant match?
Yes.
Councilor Danforth?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. So I know we're gonna, I don't say I know, for the next phase of the DOT grant award that we have to show that we have a certain amount of match. We are looking for other funding sources, but do we need to put it in here somewhere? I can't remember the exact dollar amount.
I don't know the exact dollar amount that we'll be looking for, but I know that it would be a shared, the conversation hasn't been finalized yet, but it would be a shared grant match between us and two other organizations. And it's, in total $15,000. I can't assume that we would be paying more than $5 if we split it. I would consider that a one-time hit rather than built in.
Thank you, Councilor Danforth. Councilor McEwen? Oh, just breathe. Okay. Thank you, Councilor McEwen. Any other comments or proposals for economic development? Oh, yes, Councilor Bragdon.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Correct me if I'm wrong, Mr. Manager. The web streaming for the 2,400, we are planning on phasing that out. Do we really need to have it in the budget if we're planning on phasing it out in the next couple of months?
My apologies, that's an oversight. We will eliminate that.
Mr. Chairman, I make a motion to eliminate the $2,400 from 1534 line web streaming under economic development.
Been motion for that change and seconded.
Mr. Chairman,
Councilor Madore.
are we, for that web streaming, are we under any, oh, sorry, I'm up again. Are we under any existing contract as far as time is concerned? I mean, if we're gonna phase it out, my thought would be pay it if we are in a contract situation. We're just paying monthly on it?
Correct.
Okay, so we can end at any time? Okay, thank you.
Yes.
Thank you, Councilor Madore. Councilor Bragdon.
I also want to point out, we haven't been able to use it at all in the last couple of months. So
I'm not gonna play Mike Tag with
I get that.
Well, for recording purposes,
They
Councilor.
can't hear you on Zoom.
I wanted to know whether we were contractually obligated to continue the service to a certain date. And if it was, then I would have offered to leave this in until that date and then phase it out. So since we aren't, we'll be fine.
Thank you, Councilman Dorr. Councilor Danforth?
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Chairman. I'm wondering about the line for CAT, the TV. Do you have any updates on that?
I do. I'm not entirely prepared to speak to them right now, but it is in the working document for my manager's report next Thursday. I do understand that people running that board of directors for CAT TV, they will need me to discuss that financial aspect of it with the owner of Beeline Cable. And they'll be asking for an increase. They're still waiting on, they've not received funding in quite some time. So more to come on that, but I have started that conversation with Mr. Sear from that organization. So I think that we have some, opportunities there moving forward.
Thank you, Councilor Danforth. Any other comment on economic development? Councilor Pelletier?
Yeah, just to follow up on the CAT TV, I'm curious if the town manager has reviewed the Beeline agreement regarding that public service station.
I have not. But
I wish you would.
I have requested that Mr. Sear sends that to me. He is planning to
It's
give me those documents.
the past order that we passed, the last time we passed an order paying the 5,000 out, that agreement was attached to that order.
Okay. I will seek it out and review it. I do want to point out that though the service is not available, the lack of that service does not actually cost us anything. We all understand that as it is.
So I beg to differ. If the money is passed to the town and we do not have any obligation to pass it to CAT TV, as per the reviewing the agreement with Beeline, we could have any other service provider we want. So therefore, we are passing on town money.
If I've misspoke, I will absolutely turn back on what I said and admit that I was wrong. I will review that and include it, as I mentioned, in my manager's report this coming next Thursday.
Thank you, Mr. Manager. Councilor Madore?
Councilor Pelletier brings up an interesting point in the fact that I can't remember. We used to every year or every 3 years have a request for a continuation of the agreement with Beeline for their poll service. And even though we don't charge a poll fee to Beeline, we do is we give Beeline, or we did at the time give Beeline exclusivity to have the only cable service in the community. I haven't seen or heard that agreement either updated or brought before the council in, I would say, probably the last 3 or 4 years. And I think it's time to revisit that, at least to, because we haven't signed anything saying that that agreement has been extended. And I haven't seen thing one from Beeline asking for an extension of that agreement. So I just want to see where we are with that and what is going on between us and Beeline Cable. Like I say, part of the agreement was an exclusivity agreement, so they were the only cable company in town. And part of that non-poll fee was their funding of CAT TV. They gave us a public access channel and the funding for Cat TV moving forward. And I want to know where, you know, how come that agreement hasn't been updated or extended? If you could check on that, I would appreciate it.
Yes, I'll seek out that agreement and see if I can include that as additional information in my manager's report.
Thank you, Mr. Manager. I think those details are new to a lot of us, so it'd be helpful for that information. I know it's new to you as well, so I appreciate you looking into that.
It starts being around as long as- Sometimes.
Any other council comment on economic development?
I was here when they put the holes
Councilor Madore?
in.
Seeing no other, we will move to Department 118, Community Initiatives Director. Proposed budget is $83,362. And that is a variation of the same amount since it is a new position. Any council comment on that? And seeing none, that concludes our first budget workshop. Mr. Manager.
Dave, Mary Alice pointed out that I had, just when we got up here, we had not included a review of the revenues in this schedule. I would assume that that needs to be advertised ahead of time. So I'm not sure if we can responsibly go over that this evening, but I can send out a revised schedule. We can add that either to next week's workshop or, the following one.
Yeah, let's have that added to a following one. We did review it in our last budget workshop overall. But yeah, if you could include that on the following one.
It just has those minor tweaks that I reviewed at the beginning of this workshop.
Thank you, Mr. Manager. Any other concluding council comment? Seeing none, that concludes our actually second budget workshop. And the next one will be on May 12th at 4 p.m. And that'll go over public works, admin, garage, roads and construction, transfer site, cemetery, assessing, planning code, community services, enforcement officials, dog constable, library, and potentially revenue as well. Thank you very much.